What's going on, y'all? Today's guest is Danielle Reiss. Danielle is a music publicist and a college student at the Berklee College of Music, the prestigious Berkeley, doing her master's degree in music business. And recently, she got fired from her job for going to a Donald Trump rally and posting about it on social media. Now, this may sound like a controversial guest. I guarantee you, once you watch this episode, you will learn that Danielle is someone that's really kind, maybe a little shy, very sweet, and hardworking. She's still young. She's a student, and just got hit by really bad luck. And just want to usually I keep these YouTube intros pretty quick, not as long as the podcast version. But I just want to urge you guys to practice more empathy and love for others. There's people with different opinions and different reasons why they support who they support when it comes to politics. And politics, it's a dirty game that goes far beyond most of our knowledge, right? There's things going on that we have absolutely no idea about when it comes to the inner workings of the politics and shadow government and the manipulation of the media. And this cancel culture has just gone way too far when we're firing people for their political beliefs or kicking them out of school or suspending them from school. And I always hate adding this disclaimer. I'm not a Trump supporter, but I just love and miss this classic liberal, like from back in the day where we tolerated everyone and fought for everyone's voice. And even though maybe most of the times liberals had to fight the conservatives, like now it's the conservatives that really bad shit is happening to, and losing your job and not being able to get a career again and not being able to go to school just because of your political beliefs. That's just disgusting. And we as liberals need to do much better than that and show love and show empathy again for others and have open conversations with people without getting into arguments, without getting into fights, without abandoning family members and without abandoning friends. So politics is just freaking dirty. It's just disgusting. And we're getting dragged through the mud. People are getting dragged through the mud. We're fighting a fight that these jerks in Washington are fighting. And I just want to urge you guys, be kind, spread love and peace in the world. We need to stand together. And the only way we can really make change if all of us embrace each other and we come together. So thank you all for watching. Please take a quick second to subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment. We'd love to engage with you guys in the comments. And I hope you enjoy this conversation with the amazing Danielle Reiss.
Live the life you love.
Okay, we are live. I'm excited to introduce everyone to Danielle Reiss. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So where we're going to start is kind of want to go through your story and background first. So tell me about your first memory with music. Was it an instrument? Was it a specific artist that inspired you? Was it a concert? Like, what grew your passion for the music industry?
It was probably a concert. Back in middle school, I was a big concert junkie.
Yeah.
I was always wanting to go. I don't know what drove me to them, but I loved watching award shows too online. Mm-hmm. It was just something that drove me to love music. And I think that's kind of where I started loving it and wanting to pursue it as a career.
What were some of the first concerts you went to?
Like the Jonas Brothers.
Okay.
I think the Backstreet Boys too. Just a lot of Disney people too.
Nice, very fun. I think my wife's first concert was, I always butcher this, I think it was NSYNC and New Kids on the Block.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's so funny to go back and think about what you would go to. It's
right
now.
I definitely had a phase of where I went to a lot of metal shows. And if you look at the music I listen to now, it's mostly anything laid back and relaxing, like reggae, jazz, instrumental focused music. It's completely changed.
Very different.
Yeah. I used to get in mosh pits.
I used to go to American Idol concerts, when they would go on tour, it was a big thing back then.
Was it American Idol tours?
Yeah.
Oh, fun.
It was the top 12 after they did the show. They would go on tour everywhere. I was so into that. It was so weird.
I used to be hardcore about that show. Me and my parents would be religious. Every week we would watch it and vote and call in.
Yeah, call in 1-800, whatever.
Yeah.
Now you just do it through the app.
Yeah, good old days.
Yeah, right.
What is the moment where you knew you wanted to go into the music industry?
Probably in high school. I was playing a sport in high school actually, and I was trying to get a scholarship for college, but I got injured. So that's kind of when I shifted my career into music, and I was like, I'm just gonna do that full time. And I took a risk and just moved to Nashville and was like, I'm gonna get my bachelor's out here. I don't know anyone, but let's just do it.
Yeah.
Ever since then, I've been here.
That's awesome. What'd you play?
Oh, softball.
Softball, cool. Did you go to college for softball? Because I saw something about, was it college at Santiago Canyon College?
Yeah, I went there for a year and then I got injured again, and that's kind of when I took the step to go into music full time and change my career path.
Gotcha. What a bummer getting injured.
I know, it's so when you're that young, you don't really understand like what you want to do either. So it's kind of difficult to transition into it, but it all works out for the better.
Sure, yeah. I'm sure it was like a total like mental battle too to have like this dream to play. Like, I don't know what your dreams were. Maybe I don't know if you want to play in the Olympics or whatever, but like to have this big dream and then all of a sudden it gets crushed and you have to completely shift or reinvent yourself. Before you go to your college career, I also noticed you volunteer a lot. You worked 3 years with Loaves and Fishes Family Kitchen, and you've also done some work with St. Jude, Preston Taylor Ministries. I'm sure it's probably other volunteer work, but why is it important for you to volunteer and to give back?
So at the time I was going to a Catholic high school, and I would always volunteer for softball events too. And I love working with kids and helping people. It's just something that I always grew up doing with my family. And it's something that it brings me joy to know that I'm helping someone else if I can, because I would want them to do that for me if I were in their situation.
Absolutely. It's weird, right? Because I used to have this organization called Rock for Hunger, and I don't talk about it much on the podcast anymore. I used to talk about it a lot, but we used to go out and feed the homeless every week, and then we had an annual festival like to raise money for hunger and homelessness. And it's weird because like in the beginning it feels so good like to give back and volunteer, and then all of a sudden you kind of notice it's like in a way almost like a selfish thing too, because like it feels so good to give back, so you kind of like want to give more because how good it feels.
Right.
I don't know if you felt like that.
Yeah. It's really fun though. I like it.
That's awesome. And before you went to Nashville for college, you worked for AEG, where I used to work as well. Tell me about how you landed the job at AEG and what you did over there.
So after I decided to quit softball, my parents were like, you got to get a job right away. So that was actually my first job. And I worked as a merchandise supervisor at the Angel Stadium in Anaheim. So I was basically just selling their merchandise at the games. But I did that up until I transferred to another college in Nashville. But AEG just owned, was the company run there. They didn't really have any affiliates with the Angels specifically. So I wasn't hired by the Angels. I was hired by AEG, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because did they own the venue?
Yeah, it was just like a partner.
Got it. Okay. And then why'd you choose to work there? Because it had to do with baseball, or because AEG is one of the biggest companies in the music industry? Like, what was the reason you wanted to
at that point in my career, it was more so baseball because I'm a huge Angels baseball fan.
Okay.
So I wasn't even really thinking about music at that point, but then it kind of turned into, wait, AEG is like this big company in LA, and they do the Kings, the Clippers, all that, Staples Center. So yeah, but it was a really fun job. And then AEG actually left Anaheim Stadium. So that's kind of when I went another direction again.
Yeah. And then you went to Nashville, right? So you kind of restarted, completely reinvented yourself. You went to Lipscomb University. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. To study PR, advertising, and applied communications. Why did you choose that school, and why that program?
I actually just moved to Nashville not knowing anyone.
Okay.
I went to the school, not even touring the school. At that point, I was like, I want to live in Nashville. I want to work in country music. Let's just do it. And so I went and just moved here, and I wanted to do PR more so because I wanted to work in music, but I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't know PR would be my career right now at all.
I mean, it opens a lot of doors, right? Being in PR and doing marketing, because there's so many different areas you can go into with that.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. You moved to Nashville, not even knowing where you're going to go to school, not even like having a job.
No, I just moved.
That's awesome. That's
how much I love music. I was like, I'm just going to work in music and I'll figure it out.
Yeah. I hear those stories so many times where people just like take all the risk and they just go to Nashville. What is it like to living in Nashville compared to being in LA because LA is a big music industry scene too, but I always feel like LA is more Hollywood, where Nashville is like purely music. Like why choose Nashville, not New York or stay in LA?
LA to me just seems like a very competitive town, and not that Nashville isn't, but I didn't know that moving here that Nashville was just not. It is as competitive, but LA is just such a big city with various genres of music. And at this point, I was wanting country specifically. So that's kind of why I didn't go to New York or stay in LA. I was wanting to work in country, and that's it.
Yeah. How long have you been there now?
I moved here in 2016.
Okay. Nice. Have you done worked any cool events in country music or seen any exciting things?
I've been to a couple private events. I went to like Keith Urban's album release party. I work at a bar downtown actually called FGL House. And they do
Florida
private
Georgia Line
events.
house.
Yeah, correct. And they do private events there. Or some of the artists like Luke Bryan or Jason Aldean will show up at their bars. So I'll go to those. It's much smaller than LA, where like LA, you can't really do that.
Yeah.
There's so much paparazzi, whereas in Nashville, you can't have paparazzi. It's very laid back.
Is it like a law you can't have paparazzi or?
Yeah.
Oh, really? So the artists are protected over there.
Right. So it's very laid back and like casual, friendly, very Southern.
That's probably why you see them everywhere. Because I always hear stories about like artists just hanging out in restaurants and coffee shops, just like a normal person.
Right.
That's so interesting. A quick little story. So you mentioned Keith Urban, the venue I worked at in New Orleans, and I'm sure in Nashville you get to have these awesome experiences all the time. Yes, I'm jealous, but I booked a small club called The Parish, held 350 people, and we actually had a show there with Keith Urban, which is so awesome to see him in such a small venue.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure from Nashville have other cool experiences. Metallica played the basement.
He's so good at guitar though.
Oh, he's so good, so talented.
Yeah, I don't know how. Do you play instruments at all?
I used to play guitar up until like midway through my college career, but then kind of just ended up going to more the business route. Oh, first I was pre-med, but then I decided to just more go to the business route versus being on stage. What about you?
I don't play any.
No.
People always say, because I'll be like, oh, I work in the music industry, and they're like, what instrument? But no, I do public relations. I work behind the scenes of the instruments and all that.
Well, it looks like for the PR stuff, your first, like I guess, jobs were, so you worked PR as an intern for Dan Hodges Music. Did you have any other side hustles, or was that kind of like your first music industry job?
That was actually my first music industry job. I actually have a funny story about how I met this artist called John Allen Miller. He was going to CMA Fest, and I was in town also with a friend going to CMA Fest, and we took a Lyft ride share, and we were in the same one. And I had no idea who he was at the time. I was desperate looking for an internship, but I wasn't upfront about it. But we just started talking music, casual, and then we exchanged numbers and connected, and I've been working with him ever since. Oh wow! You still work with him today? Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. So what did you do at that PR firm, like your first internship? So he is a singer-songwriter, and Dan Hodges' music label is a publishing company. Okay. So he was signed to them to write songs and pitch them to other artists. So I would kind of just take his songs and find placements for them and do press releases. And then he also was doing his own artist career on the side. So I did both, mixing with that. Very cool. And speaking of writing press releases, so to add an educational piece to it for listeners, what goes into a good press release? You got to really pitch it to the outlets. Find what the artist is about and what the song is about. You got to be because someone doesn't want to read a press release and be bored. They're going to read the first line and move on. You got to really draw in the attention and what the audience is looking for also. So how do you draw the attention, and you kind of have a tagline? Do you use an elevator pitch? Like how do you get someone's attention? Usually we go in to look at their bio on their website, and that's kind of like the summary of what they're really about. And then you also provide what success they've had in their career so far.
Right.
Because people want to know who are they and what do they do, you know?
For sure. And then once you start pitching it, like what is like the proper protocol? So let's say an independent artist were to pitch their music to like their local music paper. Like, do you attach the press release? Do you add a link to it? Like, what does that email look like when you reach out?
So always attach the press release like a PDF, because no one wants to just read a press release right there. So you attach it as a PDF, and then you write a short pitch email kind of summarizing what your press release is about. And then you attach like your social media links. If you have a music video for the song, you can attach that. And then your media contact, so they can contact you if they want to interview you or get in touch about what you're releasing.
And how often do you follow up?
So usually I would send it out about 2 weeks, maybe 1 week in advance, and follow up a few days later. But right now during COVID, from my personal experience, I've noticed that a lot of people are like bombarded with a ton of emails and people trying to release music because nothing else is really happening. So I've been kind of pushing it to more than 2 weeks and then following up a week before the release. But it kind of just depends whether it's radio or a blog or not.
Got it. What are your thoughts on, are you familiar with SubmitHub? And what are your thoughts on that?
I actually just started with that.
Yeah.
On my last client. It was confusing at first, but I got used to it. I kind of really like it though. Yeah.
For those that don't know what SubmitHub is, maybe I don't have a ton of experience with it, so maybe you can elaborate more. I guess let's let you do it. You're the expert today. So tell everybody like about SubmitHub and the benefits of using it.
So basically, you kind of just build an artist profile about your next release, and you sign up for credits, and you can use those credits towards a Spotify like playlist. And you can pick which playlist you want, but they have different points for how big they are on Spotify. So we used, I think, only like 40 points on this last client because you have to pay for it. And a lot of independent artists just don't want to go to that extra mile, which is totally fine. They have a budget, you do what they want and what fits their career. But SubmitHub, I think, is a great resource for playlist pitching. I don't know if you have any other suggestions on playlist placements.
I know I don't like playlist pluggers. I prefer SubmitHub over it because playlist pluggers charge a ton of money. And then if they don't, if you use a point, right, to submit your music, don't they have to respond to you within a certain amount of time? Yeah, so they respond within 48 hours. And the most beneficial thing out of it is if they decline you to be on their playlist, they'll write why. So they'll tell you what you could improve about your song. And I think that's helpful for artists today because, it gives them free feedback pretty much because they could simply just say no, but they always give a reason. That's good. So it's a great way to either get onto playlists or to even get some feedback on maybe what you can do better for your next release and maybe be more attractive. I always tell artists, don't take it personally. It's to help you. Yeah. I mean, music is subjective, right? Everyone thinks something different. Some people think the Beatles are the most amazing thing ever. And you have people like me that are like, the Beatles are a little overrated. Yeah, right. I'm gonna get some hate mail for that. I was actually promoting a Colombian American performer. And so, some people it doesn't fit their playlist. So that's why they'll deny it, or it just wasn't their style, which is totally fine. You just have to kind of find what works best for the artist. Yeah, absolutely. And I know you've done a few other internships. Like these internships, did you do them for college credit? Because I know some companies require college credit, and then some colleges don't give you credit. Like we talked about another university, which I won't name in this context, but they don't really have college credit available for interning. I guess tell me about that process a little bit. So during Dan Hodges' music label internship, I did get credit for that one. And then I did that up until December of 2018. And then I graduated. So then I kind of went into the job market thinking I would get a full-time job, but it's not that easy. No. Right out of college. So I still worked at the Florida Georgia Line bar in the meantime while I was applying to a bunch of other jobs. But it just didn't work out for me in the spring when I was applying. So I just took on internships to gain experience and knowledge. How
and to just put it on my resume. I just really wanted to get experience.
How many internships did you do?
3.
And what were they?
So it's the Dan Hodges, the Perkins Publicity, and the 25/8 Entertainment.
Okay. And the other one's publicity. What's 24/8?
25/8.
25/8. Is that a PR company as well?
So that was an independent music label run by, I don't know if you know rapper Bubba Sparks and Alexander King.
Yep.
A lot of people, some people are like, I don't know. Like, just think of the song Miss New Booty. But yeah, they had just launched their 25/8 label. So I helped them out for a short time.
Cool. What kind of things did you do in these internships? So if someone was to apply for their first internship and get like a similar internship, what could they expect? Like what is a good internship? What is a bad internship? How do you know they're taking advantage of you? I guess elaborate a little bit on that.
For my personal experience, I never felt like I was being taken advantage of. It was more so they were just teaching me and I was learning. Mm-hmm. I was such a young person straight out of college applying to jobs and it just wasn't working out. So I took these internships and applied them to my skills and really learned from them. But for these specific ones, they were more for independent artists. So we focused a lot on like the reach and engagement for their fans, and then their long-term success. Like, what are they looking for as artists? And I find a lot of artists know that they want their music heard, obviously, but they don't know how to build their career or their fan base because they don't know the business of it. They're just a musician, which is totally fine, but that's why we're here.
Right. Yeah, looking out for them, right?
Yeah, right. That's our job.
So the interesting thing is you've had a few internships, you got a college degree and a really good degree, and it's still tough, right? I had so many students that graduated with I tell them you have to intern. Like if I had the option to require internships from freshman year every semester for your entire college career, I would totally require that. But I don't make the program. But anyway, but like I have students that graduate from college and they're like, sweet, I have this music business degree now and I'm going to get a full-time job, make $50,000 a year. I'm like, yeah, right. Doesn't work that way.
Same thing.
Yeah. I mean, probably going to start with a minimum wage job and you work way up for a really long time. And then in 10 years, you might have a really good career if you're lucky.
Yeah. Well, you're like 30, 10 years after college.
Exactly. Yeah. That's how it is for most.
Yeah.
And then tell me about the restaurant you work at. Did you work there because it's connected to country music? Because I know the TC Restaurant Group also has the Jason Aldean's Kitchen and Rooftop Bar and a bunch of other cool restaurants. Like, why did you choose to work there? Was it literally just trying to find a job, or did you intentionally go for someone that is kind of connected to music?
It was finding a job, but it was also because they're in country music. I thought it would be a cool job just to have something while in college. And while doing my internship, it just gave me that money I needed at the time. Even though it wasn't much, it's something, and it paid the bills. And I really enjoy it. I love being in entertainment, and especially with the tourists down there. I like talking to people and seeing where they're from and seeing why they're in town and why they like Florida Georgia Line. So I'm still working there today.
That's awesome. And what kind of things do you do there? I thought I saw something about like working with merch also.
Yeah, I'm the merchandise supervisor there.
Okay. That's awesome. So you have like PR experience now, marketing experience, merch experience. I mean, once the touring industry opens back up, hopefully soon.
I know. I would love to get experience in the touring industry.
Yeah, I think you would do great there. Especially great thing about country music, if you can get on a country tour. I mean, you work Thursday through Sunday, and then you get to come home every week. Like,
right.
If you're on a rock tour, you're gone for 7 months. 7 days a week. Yeah, months. You'll see your family in your home. So that's awesome that you're in the right place, in the right genre of music.
Just gotta wait for the right time.
Yeah. And it looks like you also love to keep busy. So you also you're doing your master's degree right now at Berklee College of Music, one of the most prestigious music business programs in the country. First tell me what the admission process is like for a school like Berkeley. Is it literally as like some other schools, you just apply and as long as you pay the money, you're in, or is there some kind of more of a process where you have to take daunting GRE tests or something like that?
They don't require a GRE. It was just a 3.0. And that's kind of why I was more drawn to there, because I'm not the best test taker. So the GRE wasn't my first thought of when applying to college. I was like, okay, yay, they don't have it. But you have to write an essay, submit your resume, and then they'll tell you if you're in or not. I believe they have like a 50% chance getting in. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But but if you're an artist, you actually have to perform an audition to get into the school.
Oh, wow. That's intimidating.
Yeah. That's not my thing, but...
Tell me a little about your experience at Berkeley. Like, what were some of your favorite classes so far? Maybe feel free to shout out some professors. I always appreciate, as a fellow professors getting shouted out. Or maybe just tell me about your experience there.
So I started in April of this year, and I took a marketing class that I actually really enjoyed. When I did my bachelor's at Lipscomb University here in Nashville, marketing just wasn't my favorite. And I think it's because we didn't apply it to the music industry. It was just kind of a broad range of marketing. Mm-hmm. But at Berkeley, we put artists into the perspective of marketing and did tours with it. And that's kind of what drew me in more to it. And I was kind of surprised.
And what are some of the other classes you've taken so far? I'm assuming it's all online, right? Since the school's in Massachusetts and you're in Nashville?
Yeah. I'm taking artist management right now, which I like, music business policy. And then I'm doing a culminating experience, which is building our thesis project for our graduate proposal. And I'm actually doing it on independent artists.
Oh, cool.
I'm building a guide for them, kind of just distribution services, marketing, social media platforms are kind of the most popular in a digital age. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Very, very cool. What has been your favorite assignment so far?
That's hard. There's been so many assignments.
One of the things, I'll give you a second to think. One of the things that I do, so I have, which class do I do? I have concert touring right now and artist management. And in concert touring, they're literally learning how to settle deals. Like, we go over all different types of deals, and then basically with a piece of paper and a calculator, you should be able to, like, if your computer fails and the internet's down and the power is out and all you have is a flashlight and a pen, your audit and a pen and paper, you should be able to settle the show. Like, we literally go through that process and all the different types of deals there are. So I'd like to believe that's students' favorite assignment because you're learning real life stuff, but I don't know. I mean,
I took a finance class and the teacher was he was so into it, which was great, but so many students struggled, and he's like, come on, this isn't your favorite. And we're like, it's being applied to music, but it's so difficult.
That's probably me.
Not everyone's thing.
That's probably me.
Yeah.
Like, this is such a great assignment. You're literally learning how to do my job. And there's like, oh my God.
Yeah. Dreading the assignment.
Yeah. So what has been your favorite assignment so far? Where you feel like you got the most out of?
I would say the thesis right now, actually.
Yeah.
With independent artists. I've interviewed quite a few artists, and I'm doing a survey that I'll be sending out probably next week. Just gathering a few questions and data to see what is working for these independent artists and why they want to stay independent.
Awesome. And then from what you've learned, like, what are your thoughts about artists staying independent versus working with labels?
I really think it depends on the artist and what they're looking for, because a lot of it has to do with ownership and the budget. And a lot of people don't want to give their ownership of their recordings up. It's just a lot for them. But I think it's a great thing. If you know how to do it and you're willing to put in the work to be a DIY artist, then go for it, because there's so many ways to do it online right now.
Do you have any favorite success stories of artists doing it DIY?
I would say this artist, Hannah Mae Allison, who I had worked with at Dan Hodges' music label. She actually got some placements with Disney on their social media, and I thought that was kind of cool. It was a different outlet than I had usually pitched to. And she's a singer-songwriter here, just working on her way up. But it's a difficult industry, I would say, for artists. There's so many people here trying to fight to make it.
Right.
But it takes a lot, but it's so worth it. And I love helping artists in that way.
Have you heard of Don Byer yet in Nashville? You know, I'll try to remember to send you a link, but I love what she's doing. She's been on the podcast a couple of times, and she's a DIY artist. She used to do the whole like Broadway Nashville thing, and you know had her like slots that she played every week. And I then believe she got sick or something one week where she had to cancel all of her gigs for a few weeks, and I think she's lost her slots. So what she did is she discovered a Facebook Live button. That's when it was like a new thing still, and just went live in her living room. A few people tuned in, and she's like, wow, like I can just be in my living room, play in front of a few people, and then not have to go to Broadway and play for no one for 2 hours until like people show up and play for tips there. So she started doing like accepting tips through Venmo and PayPal, going live every day, and made 75 grand in her first year.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. So definitely need to look her up. She's in Nashville, and she has this, I think it's a label now. It's called The Real Nashville.
Okay. I'll have to look it up.
And it's like country music, but not mainstream country. It's because you would call it alt country if it's not mainstream.
Yeah, I guess just old country.
Yeah, but yeah, it's good stuff. And then from looking like, so we're going a little bit like switching directions a little bit. From looking at your LinkedIn profile, it looks like faith is something really important to you, or at least was at some point. Not sure like where you align, but tell me a little bit about that, like why, that experience. Like you practice, or if you still practice, and why that's important to you.
Yeah, I grew up going to private school my whole life, so faith was always really important to me. And especially going into my career now, I think it's always good for us to remember where we came from and what our values are. And I'm a big believer in if something doesn't work out, it's not meant to be. And that has just come from, you know, my faith background and how I grew up. Mm-hmm. What about you? Are you big into faith in your work?
Yeah, my wife and I were Christians. Mm-hmm. We used to go to church every week when we were in South Florida, but not right now. We're kind of like trying to look for the right spot. We just moved to Winter Park, so we're trying to find like the right place for us. She is definitely more, I think the word is devout than I am. Mm-hmm. I'm a little bit more. I'm very interested like in Buddhism, and the argument she'll always use is like, well, if you compare Buddhism with Jesus, it's actually the same thing that they were doing. And I was like, all right, in a way, as it kind of is, some of the values and things they believe. But yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely a Christian, but I there's just a few things I struggle with. I don't believe in the whole hell thing, which. I don't know, getting a big old theological philosophy. Yeah, exactly. And that's the beautiful thing, right? I mean, we all should have the right to believe what we believe and practice what we want to practice, which leads us really, it's a good lead into our next topic. I want to talk about what happened recently. So like you recently, and this is based on an article from the Federalist. So I'm sure, I don't know what the actual story is, but they said you recently got fired from a job you had with Pop-Off Agency, which we'll get into in a second. But first of all, just set the stage. Like, what were you doing for Pop-Off Agency? How long have you worked with them? How'd you get connected with that company? Because I saw they're a Boston-based company, but they have offices in other cities.
Yeah, so the owner is actually a Berklee College of Music alum.
Okay.
And he did the same master program as me that I'm currently in. And so this past summer, he reached out to me on Instagram and noticed that I did public relations in Nashville. And he was looking for a country PR person to help promote his agency, which is Pop-Off, because they help develop independent careers in various genres. So I signed a public relations agreement back in August of this year.
Okay.
And I attended their monthly meeting in September and met the other partners. They have partners in design, photography, videography, you name it, they have it. But on September 10th, I received my first client, who was that Latin artist that I spoke about earlier.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was a great experience with her. I got her on a radio station out in LA, and we've been working together since, but it was a great experience because I never really expanded my outlet into Latin because that was strictly country. So it was something different, but it was enjoyable. A
lot of similarities actually with Latin and country. I mean, I know the music is completely different, but I think in terms of like values, so I'm like half like Peruvian, so half like Latin. But I feel like in terms of values from fans and people in country music and people in Latin music, a lot of crossover, a lot of similarities. And like Latin music is kind of the country music of Latin countries.
They're very passionate too, their fans.
Oh yeah, super passionate. So you've been there just recently, so just a couple of months.
Couple of weeks, yeah.
Just a couple of weeks, and then like what happened? Like, I mean, first of all, reading the story, I'm like, I felt horrible like reading that, and kind of ashamed for the music industry seeing something like that. Like, what did they like? Why did they decide to like let you go? And what was that conversation like?
So on September 13th, I attended the rally of the president in Las Vegas. And I had posted on my Instagram a photo on that Monday. And then just 4 days later, they sent me that termination email, which was kind of shocking, to be honest, because they never had called me or told me that they had an issue with the post. They just sent me that email out of nowhere and didn't have a conversation with me. So I didn't respond to that email actually until October 12th. Because I was in talks with a lawyer. But a media outlet who did an interview with me on that Monday morning that I responded to them had reached out to Popoff for comment on what happened. And they never responded. So
Really?
that a few hours later, Popoff reached out to me, which was 5 weeks later, and they asked me to have a conversation with them because that news source reached out to them.
Got it. And is there anything you can share about that conversation? Like, are they standing firm with them? Like, do you still even want to work for those guys? Like, what can you share?
Since I sent them that email, we haven't talked, and they had excluded me from the monthly meeting in October, and I haven't received any more clients from them. So at this point, it's kind of in a phase of what's the deal? You know, I understand I went public, but I had a reason behind it, and the fact that they couldn't have a conversation with me in a professional manner is I think what struck me the most.
So this, I wrote something down. So I might be a little passionate now, but their company values are inclusive, curious, fearless, activist, respectful, and creative, right? So I'm sorry, but first of all, firing someone for their political beliefs and what they feel is best, like, you know, your beliefs and what you feel is best for the country, that is not being inclusive. So they already violated one of their values. You know, it's like they're inclusive as long as you're not a white Christian woman.
Right.
And that's not being inclusive. It's horrible, and makes me so sad that companies are doing that. And it's not just, I mean, it's the first I heard in the music industry, but it's happening everywhere, and it's so disappointing. And you know, these days, like publicly admitting to being a Trump supporter or going to a Trump rally, that's kind of fearless, right? And you going public, that's fearless. So that's another value that you align with. All the volunteer work that you've done is fearless and admirable and amazing. Going to a rally to support your candidate makes you an activist. I don't know you, but I imagine that you've been very respectful so far in this interview, and I imagine you're probably a respectful person. So respectful is something that is important to you. And then being in the music industry, you're probably a creative person. And I personally believe that all human beings are creative beings. So it's like, to me, it's like check. Like, you hit all their values. So to me, Popoff can go F off. Like, you didn't do anything wrong according to their values. So what's the conversation been like with your community, just like your friends and family and maybe other people you currently work with?
They were also shocked that this happened, and the fact that they put it in writing, and to say that they are incredibly diverse, and they stand for equality, inclusion, and kindness, which they stated in that email. I don't think there's anything less diverse or less inclusive than a company who terminates someone because they have different beliefs of those in the organization, you know? And the majority of Popoff's partners actually post their political opinions and beliefs, which is fine. That's what fits their personal life. But as soon as they disagree with me as a conservative, I'm terminated for holding that. That's not what makes sense.
No, it does not. And unfortunately, So I was reading a little bit into this because I had a friend of mine that's a music attorney that kind of called me out because I posted something about Spotify, like the employees of Spotify now wanting to censor Joe Rogan. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, where's our First Amendment right? And she was like, well, technically, First Amendment right only protects you from the federal government. It doesn't really protect you from companies. And then like the Civil Rights Act, and I'm not completely familiar with the language, but like whatever went into that protects you from discrimination against race, gender, religious beliefs, disabilities, and so on, but not really political ideology. But I know there's some states that do protect it. So I don't know if, since you're in Tennessee, I don't know if you're dealing with the state of Massachusetts or Tennessee, but is there some kind of protection for your political views in the states?
I would think so. Because I never posted anything like racist, hateful, or demeaning.
Mm-hmm.
It was simply a post saying that I attended a presidential campaign rally. And the fact that I never signed a code of conduct or a social media policy, I believe it was strictly out of discrimination. So I would hope so, and I'm looking into it at this point.
Yeah, and of course, I know you can only share so much since you're probably talking to a lawyer, but I'm just curious. I mean, answer only if you can, but I wonder if like you could claim religious beliefs too, like religious freedom, because as a Christian, you're probably pro-life, and Donald Trump is openly pro-life, and Joe Biden is openly pro-choice. So like, doesn't that kind of violate your religious views, and that's why you align with who you are? So it's almost like religious discrimination in a way.
I would think so. And my views are what fits my personal life. So if someone got terminated for their religion, it would be the same thing, I would think.
Yeah. And I'm not, I mean, just for listeners, I hate that I always have to like add this disclaimer, but I'm not a Trump supporter, but I'm a libertarian. Yeah, that's like cool, right? So we should have a conversation with people that we don't align with, and if they're our neighbors, we should still be able to love them and have dinner with them, regardless of what their beliefs are. But I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm a libertarian. I can lean classic like liberal, but I don't believe that the current American like liberal is what it used to be. So I guess the question I have for you is like, why are you a supporter of the president?
My values align a lot with what he says. He's a big believer in God and faith, and the American dream, and what our history has been throughout this country. And I stand by that. I understand where people will come from who are libertarian, but it has changed so much. So to a degree, I can see people's views, and I can see why they see why, I'm not, or I am for Trump, and they have a problem with it, but I stand by it, and I would post my Instagram again. It doesn't bother me that they terminated me, because that's my political belief. And if I had signed a code of conduct or something restricting me from doing that, and I did that, then I understand.
Right. Yeah. If you signed
something,
right,
violate anything.
Yeah, you didn't. And according to their values, you meet all the criteria of their values. Like what upsets me about this is, like everybody calls like Donald Trump like a fascist. He's leading us to fascism, and really, the behavior of companies like that it's like communism and borderline totalitarian behavior. I mean, like things like they're talking about things like, I mean, this is not pop off now, but there's conversations about things like health passports, constant contact tracing, mandatory vaccination programs, ever worsening censorship. You've been censored and fired for your beliefs, and all kinds of people, not just Trump supporters, but even like classic liberals, which is where I can lean as well. Like they're getting fired from colleges because they have different beliefs about the liberal candidate, and just like the whole protocol with COVID, and the mandatory lockdowns and masks. I mean, my biggest fears is and my biggest fears is it starts with these companies, right? And it starts with individuals enforcing all these things and taking our liberties away. And then eventually, as these companies and people are speaking, it's going to bleed into the government, And once it bleeds into the government, and now the government makes a law to take away our social and economic liberties, I mean, that's one of my biggest fears. Like, what's one of your biggest fears in all this? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like the fact that one side can say something, but we can't, but I can't. And then the fact that like schools are preaching in colleges, about politics just based on personal beliefs. I'm not a big fan of that either. I would like to get back to like history and who we are, Yeah.
Or my George Washington, John Adams shirt today.
Perfect. That fit.
Yeah. Like, what's like one of your biggest fears out of all this? Well, like, let's say the president doesn't win and Joe Biden wins and the Democrats take over the Senate. Like, what's your biggest fear?
Before the election happens and after I did get terminated, I was in between on whether I'd go public with this because it could either hurt my career completely or it could help me. But now I've kind of gotten past, people saying bad things or their opinions, which is totally fine. We all have our opinions about everything. But I don't think I have really a concern with the termination right now. But my concern would be if we did lose. That, like you were talking about, it would become controlling and we would lose our rights.
There's one thing I heard the other day is, because like you're aligning yourself based on your values and your spiritual or your faith. And I feel like there's a lot of people, not all, they align themselves that they just hate Donald Trump so much or dislike him so much that they just want him out. But then when he's out, what happens? Like, what are you going to do next? Are you going to go into deep depression because now you have nobody to hate anymore?
Right.
Like, what happens? And
it's also like like Popoff kind of like just suggested that's who I am. And they kind of like took I'm trying to think of the word, but they were kind of just thinking that's who I am. I'm racist or because I support the president, which is not who I am. And just within 3 weeks of my contract starting, and they don't even know me personally. So I think they could have had a conversation with me and discussed it. But at this point, I think it's too late.
Yeah. I mean, that's such a bummer, right? I mean, people should have like conversation. Like, I mean, like we're having a conversation. We never even met and we're having a good conversation. And we like are a little bit differently ideologically, like when it comes to politics, but we probably have a whole ton in common. And I feel like most people like have a lot of things in common. And I don't know, I just am so afraid of like what's currently happening. And I feel like, I have people I really love that are on both extremes. And I'm just so afraid that they are just not seeing it. And
yeah, it's even like on social media between families. If you post one thing, your family member is disagreeing with it. And it's like, now you're in a fight. It's like, can we just discuss simply as human beings and not debate with hate? That's not who we are.
Yeah, you get so much more things when you just have a peaceful conversation out of a place of love, right? And trying to like be mindful of the other person, like have some empathy and like understand their side. Like, why do they believe the way they believe? And like even if you can't agree on everything, that's okay. Like that's what makes us amazing, and that's what makes the world amazing. That's what makes meeting other people like exciting. If everyone was the same, it wouldn't be fun doing a podcast talking to different people.
We're not all gonna be the same. That would be weird.
Yeah, like who would want to listen to a podcast or an interview or anything if like we're agreeing on everything?
Right. That's like I'm gonna go listen to myself. Like,
yeah.
I don't want that.
Well, I think it's awesome that you spoke up and that you stood up. And I don't know, I know you now for about an hour, and you seem like a really, really good person that like goes by their values, sticks to their values. And I just think that's admirable. And I think that's something that the music industry really needs more of. And, the music industry needs more compassion, more diversity. And I feel like you fit into that, like the diversity that we need.
Yeah, I agree. I think the music industry kind of needs to shift into accepting people no matter what their beliefs are. It's so closed-minded right now. into we all have to believe the same thing, and that's not how it should be, especially because my political opinion doesn't affect my clients or my job. I don't bring that into, when I'm writing a press release, I'm not bringing up politics. I'm strictly working with the artist to help build their career.
Exactly. And I mean, being in country music, how has that been? Because I feel like in country music, a lot of people their ideology probably lines up with you a lot. And you probably have a ton in common, because I feel a lot of people in country music are Christian. They have people of faith, and they're probably also supporters of the president. So being worried about it affecting your career, I think you being in Nashville, being in country music, you should have nothing to worry about. How do you feel about that?
I think a lot of people stay quiet about their political views if they are in support of President Trump, just because of what could happen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of why I spoke out about my story, because I think there's a lot of us who are quiet, and don't want to be involved in the drama behind it that it brings. But I think that's why we need the discussion and to bring it up, to bring awareness to businesses that this shouldn't be happening.
Mm-hmm. Silent majority. Be interesting to see what happens next week. And the interesting thing too, right? Me reaching out to you, wanting to interview you, it's crazy because it should be this way, but I'm like, okay, am I putting myself at risk? But I'm a libertarian, I'm pretty open about that. So even that, because I don't agree with the mainstream popular norm, it's I could get canceled, the stupid cancel culture, canceled for being a libertarian.
Right. It's true, but you just have to think of the bigger picture and just don't take the negative that people send you, don't take it seriously. They don't know you,
Yeah. And I think you probably learned a lot from this too, right? Because I'm sure, and I've seen some of the messages that pop off. God, wow. So there's a lot of people that got your back. I saw their Twitter handle. I think it was a message said, "How's your day?" And seeing the comments on that. So there's a lot of people that got your back. I got your back, but I feel like you've also learned a lot. Being in PR, right? You're going to deal with a lot of different situations with your artists, and you personally going now through an experience like that, and having the right mindset of kind of just it is what it is. Some people are just, of course, it still affects you somewhat. But to have that such a positive mindset, I think it's going to help you a lot in coaching your artists through tough situations.
Yeah, and surprisingly, a lot of independent artists have reached out to me since this has happened. So I'm hoping that it turns into something good, because they've been asking me to help them with their next release. So I got a list of clients lined up. So
maybe you'll start your own PR firm.
Right?
Maybe I'll give you a call one day about one of my artists. That's awesome. I want to go into some quick little fun questions, wrap up questions, kind of end on a lighthearted note. Even though I think it's been mostly lighthearted. But when you think of the word successful, who is the first person that comes to mind?
Ooh. Can it be an artist?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm a big fan of Tim McGraw.
Yeah?
Yeah. He's my number one.
That's awesome. That's a good one. What are the books, documentaries, or podcasts you share the most?
I'm big into music documentaries.
Yeah.
I watched, I think, maybe 3 this quarantine.
Okay.
On Netflix and Amazon, and I think they provide a perspective that I wouldn't see, because I'm just in PR, so I would like to learn a lot more than just PR. Maybe tour management, artist management. But yeah, I'm big in documentaries. I'm not so big in books or Spotify podcasts.
Mm-hmm. What are the documentaries that you watched over the summer, if you remember, or just name one of them?
I'm trying to think. What was the one with Dr. Drew and when they were in Compton?
Let's see, Dr. Drew
and Jimmy Iovine.
Oh yeah. That was on HBO, right?
Yeah.
That was a good one. Yes.
Yeah.
If I remember the name of it, I will throw that in the show notes for this episode. What's the best advice you've ever gotten? I'm
very motivating, and I think it comes from my parents, to just always work hard even when you're told no. Because I've been told no a lot about, jobs after college, and that's kind of when I went into the internships and took that experience to heart. And so I think it's just never give up in the music industry because it can be difficult, but just stick with it.
So true. And that's such a good attitude to have, right? Never let that attitude change. Never let that go. That's the right attitude. And never give up, and always stick to your values. I think that's really good. Really good attributes that you have right there. And then what is something you'd like to see change about the music industry?
I think from an artist's perspective, when I've worked with them, a lot of them are fighting for streaming royalties. And that's one of the biggest complaints I get a lot is, well, I don't want to pitch to Spotify or whoever it is because they don't earn that much, which it's not all about the money, but sometimes for independent artists, they're on a budget and they put everything into it. So from that perspective, I feel for the artist, and I would like to see the royalty rate change when it comes to streaming services.
I saw something about that today, actually, where there's a group fighting for Spotify to increase their royalties. So hopefully that is something that definitely happens, right? These companies are massive, have billions of dollars, and I mean their employees are making six figures, and complaining about Joe Rogan when there's artists on their platforms that have way worse content in their music. And I think they can give a little bit more to the people that make their platform.
What would you like to see change?
Ooh, good question. Well, definitely some of the things we've talked about already, right? And like I'm big into, so like my background is even though like my skin tone is lighter and white, I look at myself as a person of color because my dad is from South America. I have a Black great grandmother and a half Black grandfather. So I am big on the social issues, right? Like I'm big into diversity and unity, fairness for all, though, not just like start all of a sudden fighting for Black and Latin rights or rights for people of color, and then all of a sudden completely do the exact same thing you were doing, to other people, all of a sudden to like people that are white and Christian. That's messed up. Like want to see more diversity and unity as an overall. I would love to see more women in the music industry. So I'm excited to see you being out there and actually standing up for yourself as a woman in the music industry. I was part of a talk at University of Florida for their music business club, and it was almost like 80% girls in this club. It was like 40 people on the call, and it was just so exciting to see like the industry change, because like I've definitely had some experience with discrimination in the music industry already in one of my previous jobs, and it's just something I want to see change. I want to see that like that old culture of the music industry just go away and become a little bit more like aligned with the rest of the world, while still keeping its like uniqueness and still keeping its art and creativity alive, and maybe bringing that to the next level. And I'd love to see like minority artists get less taken advantage of because they just don't know the laws of these record deals and all that. And there's so many stories of artists like that just have no idea. Like they're coming from low income and they get this great opportunity and someone promising them the world, and they sign these, like you said, signing your rights away, right? Signing your ownership away, and they just sign everything away, and they own absolutely nothing. I mean, I don't know what Kanye West's background is, and some of my own opinions on Kanye West, but I mean, he got completely screwed in his record deal, and that's like one of the biggest hip hop artists out there, who just went completely crazy on Twitter, sharing. I don't know if you saw this. He literally shared every page of his record contracts, and there's like 120 pages of documents that I, as a teacher, saved and will now teach a class on. On
oh my gosh, that's crazy.
But yeah, I think that's what I like to. Those, I mean, I don't know. I think that's quite a few things in there, but those are the direction where I like to see change.
Especially in Nashville right now, women are fighting so hard to make it in the country scene, like it used to be in the 90s, where it was like Faith Hill, Trisha Yearwood, those big names. And now it's just like Carrie Underwood and Kelsey Ballerini. It's like no one else can make it like the men are, which I would like to see it go back to how it used to be, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
And with the contracts, people sign these contracts and they have no idea what's in them, and then they're stuck in it. They can't get out.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd love to see where maybe the master is more of a lease versus like an ownership, right? Like let the artist own their masters.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe they don't own them until their advance is paid back. So maybe some might say, I don't care about it. But some might be like, all right, I got $100,000 advance. I still owe 20 grand on it. I'm going to pay that 20 grand because I want to own my masters again. So I feel like there should be more of a lease maybe for either a certain amount of time or once the advance is paid back, or maybe both, right? Maybe it's it has to be at least 10 years and the advance has to be paid back, whatever it is, but give the artist the ability to own their masters. I mean, it's their creative work. I mean, I know you're putting up the money and doing all the marketing behind it, but if it wasn't for the artist and their creativity and bearing their soul out there to the world, there would be no music industry. Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest reasons why artists don't want to sign to a label today, is because they want to own their recordings.
Yeah. And
I can't blame them.
And these days they don't have to. There's so many ways artists can make money. And I think it's totally okay to make, 35 to 70 grand a year and be a middle-class musician, but that's all you do. All you do is play music. And I feel like there's so many artists that can do that in today's day and age.
Definitely. Yeah.
Do you have any like last words of wisdom for the students out there, or maybe the artists out there that are listening, or any ask of the audience?
As an artist, I would say never stop doing what you're doing, because even though it is a tough industry out there, if you love what you do, you'll fight it till you make it. And as far as the music business students, find what you want to do in your career, because that's so important. You want to do what you love. Mm-hmm. And I found that for myself in public relations, and I'm continuing to expand my industry background because I have a drive to find what's new out there, what's current. And in this digital age, we have so many opportunities and outlets to find. So as a music business student, just find what you love. Mm-hmm. That's all there is to it.
Yeah. And then what's the best way for people to get in touch with you? Let's say somebody's listening to this and they need someone to do their PR. What's the best way for people to reach out to you?
They can reach me on my social media or my email. My social media is just Danielle Reiss, Reiss.
Got it. And that's all. So it's Instagram /Danielle Reiss and on Twitter and everything.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And my email is just Danielle Reiss PR @gmail.com.
Awesome. And I'll share all that in the show notes. And then before I ask you the last question, just thanks again for being on the show. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for being brave and fearless to stand up for what you believe and sticking to your faith and morals, not selling yourself out to the F off agency. And just I mean, I think you're going to be fine. Like looking at your background, looking like you seem like someone that's very ambitious, like doing all these internships, doing a master's degree, having a bachelor's, right? Moving to Nashville with like no job lined up and no school lined up yet. That's someone that I think a lot of people would want in their corner and working for them. Someone that has values, someone that has work ethic. So I just admire you, and I'm very confident good things are going to be in your future.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And then the last question I ask everyone is, what's your definition of making it?
Personally, for myself?
Yeah.
As long as I love what I do. That's all there is.